Good evening, and welcome to the May 6, 2015 Board of Education meeting. We've been in an executive session since 6 p.m. to discuss a contractual negotiations with the Bethlehem Principals Association. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do we have some participation in government students here this evening? Okay, we probably picked a good night because normally the requirement is that you stay till 9 o'clock. If we're still going at 9 o'clock, we would take a break and then you come up and sign out. And if you have a sheet you need signed by any of the board members, we'll do that. This evening we expect to be done before 9, so at the end of the meeting, make sure you come up and sign out to get credit from your teachers. Introductions?
Diane Stever.
Michael Cooper.
Jody Monroe.
Tom Douglas.
Matt Downey.
Charmaine Ridgesinger.
Christine Beck.
Lynn Lenhart.
And Judy Kehoe.
And Joanne Cunningham had a work commitment and is unable to be with us tonight. We'll start with the approval of the minutes of the April 21st, 2015 regular board meeting.
So moved.
That's the first and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? Okay, that carries. Like, you got me rushing here. Student Senate report.
I'm not sure.
Anybody from the Student Senate?
Chelsea talked to me today. She was trying to get out of a commitment to come for this evening. So,
Okay. All right, well, if she happens to come in, we'll have her speak at that time. Superintendent Douglas?
I'll try to keep it very brief. One of the things we just posted up on our website is I'd like to congratulate Bethlehem Central Middle School teacher Kristen Burns, who has received special recognition next week as she's awarded the Robert J. Niedenberger Award for Exceptional Achievement in Social Studies Education by the Capital District Council of Social Studies. So we want to congratulate Ms. Burns. If you get a chance, this is a great honor for Ms. Burns, especially during this year. And we certainly can send out our congratulations. Also, if our public and our community, as well as our students, take some time this week, as it is National Teacher Appreciation Week, to commend the wonderful staff here at Bethlehem Central that provide so much in the way of educational services and knowledge and experience for all of our community. So board members, if you get a chance, I'm going to put out a letter most likely on Friday morning, and I'll include the board in with that as well, and then put Matt and my name on the bottom of it. So one other thing is tomorrow's a rather big day in New York State and for education, and I'm looking forward to it as I was selected to be a representative of NISCUS at the Teacher Leaders Summit sponsored by the State Education Department. There's roughly about 200 individuals that will be able to partake in hearing from an esteemed panel that's being put together. I know our colleague Lynn Lenhart, and I'm sure NISBA will be very, very well represented, and I believe you're doing a presentation for
Right. I'm actually not speaking. We have 3 staff members who are speaking.
But it will hopefully be a good way to hear from the field and dialogue on some of the emergent issues of APPR, the funding, tying some of the funding to the evaluation process, and provide hopefully guidance in the absence of guidance that we've seen so far. So,
Well, since the School Boards Association is the last group to be able to present, it goes from 9 to 6 tomorrow, and NISBA's on at 5 p.m., so I'm not sure how many people will be left there, but at that point.
I will be.
But we are proposing, number one, that delay the APPR requirements for another year, not this November 15th, but go into 2016, so there's time to actually look at it a little bit more carefully, and also to remove any fiscal implications with the APPR. In other words, the governor wanted state aid to be held until those APPR agreements were done, and certainly, we have the budget public hearing tonight. We certainly don't want to have our money tied up for reasons like that. So we're proposing the 2 things: hold off on the APPR to 2016, and to remove any punishment, so to speak, for not having the APPR tied to the state aid that comes to school districts.
yeah.
So can I just clarify, all aspects of the APPR
when you say hold off, say more about that.
Well, in the state budget that was passed, the requirement was that the APPR agreements had to be done by November 15th. And if they weren't done by then, and these are negotiated with the unions in each school district, that state aid would be withheld to school districts. So
that's
what we're
that's
saying is hold off by November 15th of this year.
Right.
Which, you know,
Under the new criteria, though, for the APPR.
right.
That's what
under
I'm
the
gonna
new
clarify. Yes,
criteria
that's what I'm
of
gonna clarify.
APPR.
Yeah.
We already
Yes.
all have.
Oh, we have one
Right.
on file, yeah, okay, thank you, that's
I'm
what I'm
sorry.
yeah. it's like-
No, I believe there will be hopefully very fruitful discussions tomorrow and hopefully very concerned listeners on the panel and then the decision makers also hearing and looking to make sure that they make the best choice for New York State going forward. I'm just happy to be representing our superintendent's group as NISCUS and also representing Bethlehem. And as you can see, just having 2 of the 200 seats is at least good for Bethlehem, and hopefully we'll be able to make a difference. So at that point, because of the interest of time in the public budget hearing, and we've been running a lot of late meetings, that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas. Anyone else, any questions for Tom? Okay. Next, the Board of Education report. Yes, Charmaine.
I'm sure other people too also attended the high school concerts last week. As always, magnificent performances. Congratulations to the musicians and their families. And also, I know Lynn and I participated yesterday with the Meet the Candidates Night. And again, a thank you to the League of Women Voters for coordinating that. And I thought we had a great turnout, I thought.
And if you missed it, you can watch it on the website.
Do they get extra credit?
The thing that I read today, or what's earlier in the week, from NYSBA, the daily things that come out, and they inform you on different things that go on different school districts, I thought was interesting. I think it was Burnt Hills Central School District, where they are contemplating putting a student from the high school on the Board of Education so that they would be able to participate in different conversations on the needs that are in the high school that maybe because we're not in high school, we might not know. I think it's something that maybe as a board we might want to think about and contemplate, and I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, one of our past board members, Jim Lytle, had done that as a high school student. I don't know whether he was at Brighton or Pittsford outside of Rochester. And as a high school student, he was,
Right.
he did do that.
They did a panel, and they selected the student that would be on the board, but they weren't part of the executive session, but they participated in the evening conversations and some of the agenda items, and I think there could be a lot of benefit to that, so.
Maybe it's something we could discuss at our retreat.
Last week, I was able to go to Hilton Central School District and look at the IB program. So I'm kind of looking forward to that when we get together and talk about the program.
Did other people go? Who
There
else?
was, I think there was 9 of us.
What was your initial thought on it?
I liked it. I mean, it was really good. It was, we went to a few classrooms and we listened to a lot of the people and the teachers and stuff. So it was good. I had a good feeling about it.
Good.
And then this past weekend was our junior prom here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you went to the
No.
junior prom?
No, I didn't go.
I
I
have
did see
several-
some nice pictures in the Times
Yes.
Union. The scene people had gone there and they posted out in the Times Union, so,
I have several pictures too.
yeah. I know Diane's daughter went, so.
Yes, several of us had people at the prom.
Okay,
So.
all right, good. So it's always nice to have that event and go off without a hitch too, so. And I know they have the senior ball coming up in the beginning of June. I think, what, June?
And the Times Union posted, I think, 143 pictures,
Something
so
like
if you
that.
want to
It must
view,
be on the blog, like
yeah, on the Times
Yeah,
Union
yeah.
blog,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you can
Yeah,
check them out.
electronically,
Yeah.
yeah.
From just here?
Yes.
From Bethlehem's prom,
yeah.
yes. So it
Yeah.
got most of the
Yeah.
couples going in, so it
Mhm,
was nice.
mhm, mhm. This
Everyone
time of
went.
year, they do a lot of that. They do the high school proms. They'll list them out where they are. So good.
Esther, can I ask Dr. Douglas to just tell us what's going on in the track, and, because it's so obvious, and then also what the timeline might be, because I'm sure people are getting excited, that it looks like
I'll
something.
try to fill that in.
Okay.
Ms. Nealon, there's a major hum in this speaker again, so I just wanted to let you know. That's
I
what-
think Mike
Okay.
was singing.
Doctor, what you're saying, it's important. It is something that has been in waiting. This week's weather sort of provides the opportunity for the track to have the top coats put on. Today was the first day. It took 2 days to sort of tape off the area. They completed the spraying this morning about 10:30. We did have some odor throughout the area just because it's off-gassing and it's an aerosol. But they will be doing a second coat tomorrow, and I want to thank the staff and the faculty, the parents for dropping off and working around that, because we don't want cars to be covered by any spraying adhesive material and having any potential damage to the vehicles. So everybody was very cooperative today. We're hoping that if all goes well, everything goes well tomorrow. The second coat's applied, then it has to cure, which they would expect over the weekend. Then they would probably start the striping and detailing of the track the following week, with a potential possibility that we may get the field somewhere around the 18th. I haven't always been optimistic on the time, just because of the fact they have to release the whole field, because we don't want to void any warranties. So optimistic that it might be around the 18th, but it could be around the 25th, but that's the timeline right now.
And it should be closed, it's also closed to
And
the
it's
public.
still closed to the public until the gates are open and you have free access to it. Please do not bring in snow blowers at this time of the year or any other time of the year like in the past. But we should have it open, and it will be readily available once the gates are open and unlocked. Please do not go in when the facility is closed down.
So is that the reason why in the front, there's spots reserved for teachers that travel? Out in the front, there's several slots that are
Yes.
reserved for traveling
Yeah, out in
teachers,
front,
so they
yes.
have parking spaces?
Yes.
Thank you.
And Will, speaking of the, hate to think of snow again, it seems like it just melted, disappeared. Will that fence be secure even during the winter, so that there is no instance of someone coming in with a snow blower?
I think we may have to explore a different type of gating structure to the facility. Because right now, the way the gates are, if the gate's open, you can just bring a device in. A lot of athletics stadiums tend to have what's known as a finger gate, and it's a revolving turret where you walk through on one side, but something else can't go through with you. I think that might be what we may need to look at, so that the track can be open for runners, health-conscious individuals in the community, but yet keep out items that could potentially do damage, as was the case previously.
There'll be a camera out there too, right? When install
They
the cameras?
should be. I've got to look at the camera plan at this point. I know they're doing exterior cameras at this time.
Plus, if you put that kind of revolving structure up, it'd be higher than the current gates. People
Oh, yeah, you can
up-
jump right over the
yeah,
gate
jump
right now.
over the gate.
You can't carry a snow blower over either, though.
Where there's a will.
I know.
Thank you.
Right, anyone else? No? Okay, moving on. Did you have something else, Lynn?
No, I was
okay.
just going to mention the SCD Summit also, but
Yep, okay, cool.
Dr. Douglas did a good job with that.
Okay. So next is a presentation of the 2015-16 budget hearing. The board adopted the budget at our last meeting. This is now our official hearing, required by law. Or, well, the presentation, and then we'll open it up for a public hearing.
Yeah, we're going to try to make a tag team
Okay.
event of this
Yeah,
presentation go very rapidly. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's agenda will be a quick budget overview. We'll discuss about the tax efficiency plan that all school districts are to submit by June 1st. And then we'll also just go over ad nauseum like we've done in other presentations about the capital outlay, because we're required to, and also recap any of the potential propositions that will be on the ballot, and then hold the public hearing. Right off the bat, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kehoe for the financials.
Good evening, everybody. This is our joyful news of this budget season, which is the restoration of our state aid with the $1.1 million that came back to us in the GEA, along with our increase in building aid, as was scheduled for our new project. We're up close to $2.5 million, which has enabled us to keep a very low tax levy. The maximum allowable tax levy, because we had that building aid, is lower. We're at a 0.45%, which is reflected in the adopted school taxes line item. So with the state aid increase and other known changes in revenues, no use of fund balance, thanks to that restoration, we're proposing total revenues of $94.162 million. On the expenditure side, we benefited greatly from the reduction in the TRS rates, which allowed us to have a reduction in our overall benefits costs. With our contracts that were in place, we have very nominal increases in our overall salary line item. Total increase of only 1.66% in expenditures, balanced out at the 94,162. As we get to the end of the process, when the budget is adopted, we like to update our budgeted forecast, which is what I've done for you here. Obviously, the numbers in black are the years for which we are in, or we have the adopted budget for 15-16. The orange numbers are your projections. So the revenue number on the very top row does not include anything for the tax levy. That's assuming modest increases in state aid and other anticipated revenues for pilots and things like that. On the expenditure side, I project out in more depth than what you see here. This is looking at increases in salaries in addition to fringe benefits as a percentage of salaries. What I changed since the last time I had done this projection was I lowered the percent for salaries thanks to the reductions in the TRS and the ERS rate. So that is something that is favorable in the out years. And then the gap indicates what we would need to close with a combination of either expense reductions or increases in the levies. I made an assumption of 2.5% higher per year. That really is going to be determined in those out years based on whatever the tax cap formula would be in the out years. But if we were at the average of 2.5%, you can see that without using fund balance, we in fact are very close to a balanced budget. To have differences in the budget of under $400,000 on a $94 million budget, you're approaching the petty cash stage of things. This is great news because in fact we're ahead of where we thought we were going to be. Are you waiting to?
And one of the things that we want the board as well as the community to understand is these are the same projections we've been doing for the past 4 years now. And each year, we sort of have to relook at that projection. This is our best conservative estimate because as we've gone over the past 4 years, our maximum allowable tax levy has actually been up around 3.2%. It was atypical this year because of building aid and a capital project. So if you notice, we're making a conservative estimate that our maximum allowable would be 2.5. That extra 0.5% in that maximum allowable is about $300,000. So with the balanced budget, if we kept with that traditional 3%, we'd actually have more of a potential surplus on the budgeting side to repair some of the health of the district. In addition, this makes no assumption with gap elimination adjustment. Imagine if you look at 2016-17, imagine everything came out perfect. We were at 2.5 would be our maximum allowable, and we were not planning on using fund balance, and we did not have any, we had very slight growth in our year-to-year budget increase, and all of a sudden we saw the remainder of the $1.9 million that's owed every year to us. Now you can see our gap is now a surplus even before we start of $600,000. Now that would continue in each of those outlying years. So the reason why you tend not to go out 4 and 5 is because it becomes too unknown. But this gives us our best projection and what we've been using for the past 4 years to guide us to the point that we have one of the best budgets that we've been able to develop, one of the lowest tax levies in the history of Bethlehem, and one of the smaller budget-to-budget growth, as well as, finally, no supporting of the budget by our own funds, which hasn't happened in roughly about a decade. So these are our projections. We've been very confident. Judy has been very good at maintaining this line as we've talked about it, so that we look at the future being much brighter than it is. Hopefully, there are no curveballs down the road.
Can I ask just a quick question
Sure.
on the expense line and the salaries? It doesn't account for any breakage that might occur.
Does
correct?
not account for any major retirements.
Okay.
It does not account for that. because we have to take it as a snapshot in time.
Certainly. So in fact, it may be lower. if
It could potentially be lower, and costs could potentially be higher. I mean, this is making just general assumptions.
Thank you.
What was that?
She was just telling me on salaries to put in, she was assuming around a 2.7% increase.
Okay.
This year's budget, I know they talked about eliminating the GEA for next year. Was there any language in it that says it will be eliminated or not?
They're supposed to put the language in, nobody's been able to find it. I mean, with everything that's happening in the Senate and some of the prospective leaders, one that might come to mind if it ever comes to fruition has been the main leader on eliminating the GEA, and that's Senator John Flanagan. He has stuck to his guns, and I think now that the GEA is around 460 or 490 million left, it is certainly within range to remove it all in 1 year. I could see them sort of splitting it over a 2-year period as well as they try to work up the combined wealth ratio share agreement for the GEA. So hopefully, you know, in 1 year, I mean, as you can see, for us, if it did go over 2 years, that wouldn't be a bad thing as well, because it's sort of gradually stepping us off as we're budgeting too. But it would be nice to always know that it's in the bank instead of having to wait and see whether it is in our budgeting process. So any other questions on our long-range forecast? It does look very good for Bethlehem. Tax rates are always something that will firm up in August, but Judy's done her best to firm them up now.
No significant change from what we presented at the last meeting. We're still, based on the figures that we have right now, we're looking at $20.81 per thousand, or a 0.21% increase. So the reason it's not at the 0.45 that we're seeing on the levy is because there has been overall growth in the assessed values between the two towns. So for a $250,000 home, it's an $11 increase.
So both towns have given you the numbers, so
I
probably this is not going to change too much by August?
It will change by August. They're still putting settlements on there, anything that goes through the tail end of the small claims or the certiorari process, if there's any adjustments on commercial properties. There are always changes, but there should not be any significant changes to what's up here. But those will be updated in August once we get the final numbers. We have added, thanks to our wonderful tech department, the tax estimate calculator, which is on our webpage. So very easy for residents to go in and put in their assessed value, net of any exemptions, to come up with the approximation of what they'll see for just the school tax component of the bill. As a reminder, also new this year, the veterans exemptions that had been approved by the board a short time ago will be appearing for the benefit of any qualifying homeowners. The amounts are different from the town's amounts, but that will be automatically transferred over if you are eligible for that. So if you are the beneficiary of that, you will actually see a reduction even lower than what was quoted for the $11 for a $250,000 home. How much lower will depend on what level of exemption you have.
And if someone didn't currently have the exemption on the town-county portion, the time has already probably passed.
The time
to
has
apply for
passed.
next year,
They would
but they could
have-
always apply, and it'd be applicable in future years.
In a subsequent year, exactly. They would need to have that approved by the March 1st taxable
Deadline.
status date. So, but we tried to advertise it, so hopefully we don't have too many people in that situation. The tax efficiency plan overview. This is on the agenda tonight for you to consider and hopefully approve so that we can get this submitted to the state by the June 1st deadline. This was a new piece of legislation which, effective with the last fall 2014 school taxes, because the board adopted a budget and the community approved a budget that was within the maximum allowable tax levy, qualifying homeowners did receive a rebate check. Now, for the fall 2015, in addition to adopting a budget that is within the maximum allowable tax levy, districts and other local government employers have to submit an efficiency plan to the New York State Department of Budget and they have to approve that efficiency plan in order for the qualifying residents to receive the rebate checks.
One of the things that we've worked very hard on is efforts to constrain expenditures. And we'll go back and forth between a couple of the slides because we also have some new news to intro to the board tonight because we just received wording on it today, so it's a very good thing. But, you know, throughout our budget process, we've been talking about how we've tried to reduce annual costs, and here are just a few of our ongoing efforts of securing a fair but reasonable agreements with all of our staff. We did that with our BCTA and our BCUEA in respectively 2012, 2014. We're currently in negotiations with our BPA, and we're looking along the same lines as we try to settle that collective bargaining agreement. In addition, we have experienced significant health insurance savings in 2011-13. We've refinanced debt to lower interest costs in 2012. And notice it says 2015 because Ms. Kehoe has just informed us that our refinancing will roughly save us another $2 million over a 20-year period, or roughly about $100,000 averaged out a year. So I want to thank her for keeping track of all of our refinancing needs, as well as with our fiscal advisors. So that's something that already puts next year's budget into a very strong position. So thank you. Also, we went through the battle of the transportation efficiency, but that keeps paying off each year. And now that we're really settled in, it really has not been too much of a bother, except for the initial first month of implementation. We regularly put out RFPs for professional services, including our insurance, which gave us a significant savings. In addition, we are going to be going out with an RFP soon for solar savings for electricity, because it's something that makes cost-effective sense for us. As well as there's other smaller efficiencies that, you know, they add up, and we've tried to record them, although we probably will not put them all in our tax efficiency plan that's to be submitted. We have identified the major ones. So for us, we're required to save roughly 1% annually and show that we can save it continually over the next 3 years. And what that does is if you look just at our rerouting of the transportation system alone with 25 fewer routes that is eligible for this efficiency plan, that's over $1 million in savings. We've already met our 1% for each of those years from here on out. As long as we don't add back routes, then we can't count the savings. But to be cautious, we wanted to go roughly about 3 times over. That way, if any costs came forward, the efficiency plan couldn't be ruled not compliant with Department of Budget's guidelines. So we also did the reduced pricing in our healthcare, and with that growth factor, we see somewhere around $681,000. So for a total that we can put in is about $1.6 to $1.7 million. We've more than met the requirement by almost 3%. So that's really important for the community to know that although we had the challenge from our governor of 1%, just on 2 items alone, we've already hit 3%. This district, this board, this community, our staff members especially, have all worked very tirelessly to make sure that Bethlehem Central was able to do this even before it was a thought in the budgetary process. So we want to commend everybody for making sure that this is a reality as good fiscal stewards of the Bethlehem Central community's taxes as well as their school system. Do you want to add anything on that? Or?
Are there any other questions on the material that I had included in your packets relative to the calculations? I mean, it is good news that the savings are in fact well beyond what is required, and we're going to keep doing it because it's the right thing to do, not because we had a law that said we needed to. So,
I do have one question.
Yeah.
On the forecasted budget that you put out previously, did you look at the trends for the TRS and the other retirement system to make sure that when you were calculating, you were looking at that I'm
That's
assuming you did,
factored
but-
in. There are many assumptions. Obviously, your health insurance rates are going to change every year, as are those pension rates. Your FICA and Medicare will probably stay the same. So that's the reason I do it as a percentage of salary, because between the various elements within fringe benefits, you're usually pretty close
Okay.
Based on that.
Because some years there were big swings, so I just,
And that was driven by the pension,
It's a very
yeah.
good question, because right now, we saw the big swings,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're seeing the drop-off. We saw a 4% drop-off. We don't believe it will be that high, so in the budget already, even if you use the same budget going forward, you're still at about 13.25%, and we know that next year, it's going to have a 5-year smoothing, so it will be in the downward trend
okay.
as the economy is recovered. So that's sort of already built in just into the natural budget. The good part is, like we said before, is when it gets below 12.5%, we must keep it at 12.5% to start building for that rainy day when all of a sudden it swings the other way.
The other way, okay.
And then, once the board approves this plan, there are certifications that have to be submitted to the state as well. One that Dr. Douglas will certify to, that we're going to make our best efforts to keep up with the plan, and then one that I will certify to, that the calculations will yield in excess of 1% of our tax levy.
I think those are going to be two hard signatures to write, so.
Reminder of the capital outlay plan, we do have a $100,000 included within the budget to fund the third phase of the work here at the high school pool. And we will receive building aid on that, so that's a nice way to leverage the cost of the work that needs to be done there. Also on the ballot, of course, we're going to have our budget and the bus replacement proposition. This does not change any of the totals within the budget. It just gives us the legal authority to make the purchase of the 8 large and 2 small buses. And then we also have the proposition to create a capital reserve, which will allow us to fund that reserve if we have surpluses and if the board approves allocating a portion of those surpluses into the reserves. That's another great way to augment the amount of funding that you have available on your capital projects in the out years. You maintain the same level of state aid based on the current formulas, and then you minimize the need to actually issue debt for that. And then we have 2 seats on the Board of Education. We have 3 candidates running for the 2 seats. The biographical information is available on the district's webpage. And of course, we encourage everybody to come out and vote on the budget and on the candidates.
And I know you talked about it, but we did miss one slide. Just so that the public knows is, as Ms. Kehoe mentioned, one of the propositions is on the creation of a capital reserve. We want to make sure it's very clear that this is just the creation of a capital reserve fund account. This is a restricted component of the general fund balance. And what it does is it allows us so that we can fund with any potential budgetary surpluses. There is no collection from our tax base to fund this capital reserve fund. It is only from budgetary savings that could be potential at the end of each year that the board would be able to authorize to go into the capital reserve fund, and it would have roughly a maximum life of 10 years and could be funded up to a maximum amount of $10 million. I do not believe we're going to get to that level, but if we do not have that funding mechanism, we cannot effectively plan for capital projects or bonding down the road and try to minimize the cost to the tax base. So that's what this fund is for, is it's like creating a savings account for the board to use with their fiscal prudency at the end of each year to fund it for future expenses, such as some of the work that's going on outside in all of our buildings. So remember, the source of the funds are for capital projects. It will help lower debt issuance, but the board has to authorize the use of the capital reserve fund once it's funded. And there's a second check on that, that even though the board authorizes the use, it still must be put before the voters of the Bethlehem Central School District to actually access the money to use it for any approved project. So we just wanted to make sure we clear that up, and that will be in our budget highlights. The highlights should be in the mail tomorrow because statutorily we have to mail it out within so many days of the vote with the reporting mechanisms that we're required to by New York State. So please look for that. It should be in your mailboxes hopefully by Friday, Saturday, or Monday at the latest, so. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, we have the 3 board candidates that are running for the 2 seats. We do really hope that because of the nature of this budget, people really still participate. It's our civic obligation. Bethlehem has been known to have one of the highest voter turnouts, but in light of this 0.45 potential levy on very low tax rate, we still want to encourage people to come out, vote, because there's a lot of things to let the board, the administration know, and we want to hear from as many people within the community as possible. That concludes our presentation. Time for the budget hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Douglas, Ms. Keough. Also, I'd like to add, at this point, I think it's a good time. I know one of the positions the board and the administration had talked about was a literacy coach position, and we had gotten, the board has received several letters, one from Glenmont staff, one from Eagle staff, signed by individual staff members at both those schools, and then a letter from Ellesmere that was not signed by individual staff members at that school. The board has discussed, the request to reconsider that. We have decided that in light of what we have added back into the budget, we are not going to reconsider that position right now, but we have directed the administration, like we had during the whole process of the budget, to evaluate the need for professional development, not just for a literacy coach, but any type of coaching positions and/or changes in structures that may be able to provide better and support to our staff, our teachers within the elementary and throughout the district. So, all right. At this point, we have to make this formal announcement. Tonight we are holding a public hearing on the proposed budget as required by law. The notice of the hearing was published in the Spotlight, and a copy of the proof of publication will be included within the official minutes. At this time, I invite any members of the public to speak who wish to offer up comments either for or against on the proposed budget. I ask that you please state your name for the record prior to offering your comments. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on the budget? Yes, yep, yeah, you can take it right out.
Take it right up.
Hello, hello. Hi, my name's Glenn Jeffers. My 2 sons attend, one's in Hamburger, one's in the middle school now. And sorry, I tuned out. Anything else you need?
No, just,
Nope.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Just a general comment. The budget specifics, relatively okay. But just going through my thought process when we found out we got more money from the state, leaving aside how we got there, and then thinking, great, we could meet contractual obligations, put some stuff back, and have a 0% tax levy. I feel that we missed a great opportunity here for a rare moment when it could have been 0. And then we went right up to the tax levy limit. And it seemed really obvious going through past videos of other board meetings, some decisions could have been made just to figure it out, how to make it 0, just once. It's probably never happen again in a decade or so, but just once, it would have been lovely. So I'm just wanted to put that out. I feel it was very disappointing. Again, the details, they make sense in many respects to me. It's not a huge thing, but it was disappointing is the word I would use for that. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the audience? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Benicia. In addition to being a parent of a recent alum and a lab school sophomore, I also have the privilege of serving as the president of the Bethlehem Central Athletic Association. Personally, I'm proud of this budget for many reasons. From a programmatic perspective, it makes prudent investments in increased staffing, technology, and other areas that will further strengthen teaching and learning. It also reinstates a number of items that have been cut in prior years in the athletics department. Hundreds of families have worked tirelessly over this period to make sure these cuts did not diminish the experience of our student athletes or our coaches. We're very grateful to the board and to the administration for these restorations and enhancements. I think we should also be grateful because this budget puts the district on the soundest financial footing in recent memory. As someone who's worked in and with state and local governments for more than 20 years, I know budget heaven when I see it. And I see it in a budget that restores cuts, raises taxes less than 1%, uses no fund balance, and grows our reserves to nearly $10 million. Finally, I think we should also be proud of the process the board and administration have followed in crafting this budget. Anyone with an opinion on this budget had an opportunity to come and share his or her view many times before this evening. The materials presented by the administration are available on the district website, as is the video of all the board meetings. And in less than 2 weeks, we all get to vote on it, which I strongly encourage everyone who can hear me to do. One of my favorite TV shows, they used to say, decisions are made by those who show up. I hope everyone in our community chooses to show up on May 19th. Thank you for delivering this budget and for all the time and energy you devote to strengthening our community.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else that would like to comment on the budget? Okay. Seeing no one, at this time I ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
That's a first and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. We are now closed.
Just so he can get a shot of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as previously stated, the budget vote is May 19th, 2015, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. here at the high school in the gymnasium in the front of the building. Okay. Recognition of visitors. At this time is set aside to recognize anyone in the audience who would like to address the board on an agenda item. Anyone? No? Okay. Finance. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items A through J.
So moved.
That's a first and second. Any discussion? All in, yep.
Just want to thank the two groups that donated the composting,
Garden Club and Kiwanis Club.
the farmer's market, the middle school garden club, whatever, for for that piece of equipment, and the Kiwanis Club for, funding the trip for the Helping Hands Club at the middle school. I think it's great that people do make these contributions and maybe make some possibilities available for some students that may not have been able to do something before, so.
We'll make sure our letter represents it.
I have just a comment or perhaps a question on J, the transportation rates. Were those rates dropped for school-based groups this year?
This current fiscal year, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then I have a question on the election inspectors. How do we set those rates for what they get paid?
They're fairly nominal. There's a whole day rate and a half day rate. All of our volunteers have been in at the half day rate, or the half day service, and they haven't increased in many years.
Yeah, they're pretty low.
They're very low. And we
You're
are
not signing up
very
to do it, huh?
We
grateful.
try to make sure they get fed well.
And yes, we do feed them, that's all included, and it's a fun day, getting to see everybody in the
It's a long day.
community when they come out. It is a long day, which is why we try to only sign people up for half-day assignments. It's a long half-day. But yeah, we're very appreciative, and we're always looking for people who are willing to help out in that fashion. And we've had a number of recent graduates who are home from college, who are coming back to participate, so it's just fabulous to see kids who have graduated from Bethlehem come back and want to be part of this process, working on Election Day. Once we had the wonderful tech department add Wi-Fi, we really recruited a lot more easily
I got you.
for slow times at the
So
polls.
you don't put the rates in when you recruit? No.
Full
Well,
disclosure.
years ago, for many years that I was on the board, people just volunteered. They weren't paid at all. So I know it's a nominal fee, but, part of it's in that consideration.
And we give them the choice to volunteer, so.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Item 8 carries. Moving on to item 9, professional personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following instructional staff action items A through H.
Second.
First and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? That item carries. Item number 10, support personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following support staff action items A through C. C being the newest item on there.
So moved.
Second.
That's a first and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item carries. Item number 11, correspondence for action. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following correspondence action items A through F.
Second.
First and second.
I just have a question on approving these, these trips to different countries. So far in advance, like the latest one is in 2020. I know you have to plan ahead, but
Well, the reason is, we obviously can't put the exact dates because we don't have the school calendar. But, for example, if someone is, an 8th grader coming into the high school and they know they want to go on a trip here with EF Tours, it locks in the rate for them, so then they get, if the rates go up over the course of years, they're
Oh, I
still
see.
locked into
Okay.
that rate. And we do have protection in case something happens and we weren't able to go on that trip due to something unsafe in the country, and there's insurance, so we have that as part of the agreement.
This is one of the nice things when we were dealing with multiple tour companies. Now the district is dealing with one. We put out an RFP, but by being able to lock these items in and get the guarantees and security on it, it's really for the best financial position for anyone interested in it. Because no matter what, each year the rate gets reset, and if they can lock in earlier, it's just a financial benefit for everybody.
I was happy to
Thank you.
see that the middle school trip was brought back for middle schoolers. I thought that was great. And then my only other question was on item E. Is that the lab school trip, or is that something for the entire high school, or is it both?
It's for the entire high school. It's a science, social studies trip, I believe, combined.
I just have a comment on the item C, the trip to South Africa. When people sign up for that, I really would recommend the district perhaps have an additional meeting just to reinforce how long that trip is in terms of it's not like a trip to Europe or.
Right, no. They
I know,
always
people
have-
should really
Right.
understand the ramifications I think it's a
It's a
great
long flight.
opportunity, but it's long. I think it's like a day and a half travel, at least there and then back. So in terms of the span of the
it's a
trip,
long
it's
time.
not.
Crossing that date line.
Yeah. And then I have a question on the item A, the 5-4, why is that in red?
Because it's a new,
Just
since
added.
the initial
Was-
agenda that went out. It's a change to the
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah,
we
Thanks.
received
it's a
earlier.
walkthrough for an emergency from a CSE meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? That item carries. Okay, now, at this time, the board would recognize anyone who wants to address the board on a non-agenda item. Being none, we'll move on. Future meetings, we have the, as previously stated, election on May 19th here at the high school. We have the annual budget vote, the bus proposition, the establishment of a capital reserve fund, and 2 seats open on the Board of Education. We also will be, on the machines will also be the library vote, and library trustee seats will be on that. So all those will be on the same machine and eligible for voting from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Okay. Our next regular board meeting is the following day on Wednesday, May 20th. Please note that that meeting will be held at the middle school. As part of our planning for the year last July, the board decided that we wanted to visit every school within the district. We have visited every elementary school. We've had meetings multiple times here at the high school. This is our road trip to the middle school. We look forward to that and having an opportunity to speak with Principal Klugman that evening. After that, we have our Wednesday, June 3rd, will be another board meeting that will be here at the high school with a 6 p.m. executive session, 7 p.m. board meeting. So I'm not sure if that is too late to get the PIG credit in, so we may have a busy meeting on the 20th, so I'm not sure. Does anyone know? I know they have a certain time frame.
Yeah,
to-
I think,
Having
I,
about 12, right?
I think June 3rd might be their last.
Last time to be
Yeah.
able to attend a meeting, so
But
I
also
just note that for
let
them.
them know, let the teachers know too, that the meeting on the
Yes,
20th. at the middle school.
Brittany makes sure that she communicates to the
Yeah,
department.
so. And we do need to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter. It is not anticipated that we will take any action, official action, as a result of that executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
That's a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We are going into exec session. PIG students, you can come up and sign out. Your obligation is done.